is March 2018, and it is time for another episode of the podcast. This month, what we're going to be talking about, or what I'm planning to talk about, is more about the interviews that we've done over the years with the barbers and in the barbershops, how that's evolved over time, and where we hope to take those interviews going forward. I would love to hear some comments or get some feedback from you guys as to what styles of the interviews you've enjoyed, or what you've liked and disliked about the interviews, and also if you've seen something else out there on the internet that you thought was a compelling, interesting video style interview, share that with me, because I would love to take a look at it and see if there's something we can take away from that to incorporate in the interviews we do.
Barbershop Museum and Gallery. If you notice, I got a lot of pictures and frames on the walls, and I'm obsessed.
So basically, what we've learned from doing these interviews over the years is we've pretty much tried two techniques. One is a formal sit-down interview where we literally sit the person down, put the camera in front of them, and then ask a series of questions and have a bit of a general conversation to see what comes out of the interview and how we can put it into an interesting little story. A classic would be Cliff or Matthew in Phoenix, where it was a very formal interview, very formal filming, and the whole interview took maybe 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes at the most, and that was enough to get out a story about themselves and a story about the shop, with a few good quotes in there that we could edit down to 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes as an interesting interview. The other technique that we've used is a walk around, where we literally hold the camera, and it's very run and gun kind of filming, and we walk around and have the barber show us around the shop and shows some of the things within the shop that they think is interesting. I'm behind the camera, kind of probing them with more questions and seeing where it goes, and trying to get as much out of them as possible in a short period of time. Ideally, you want to try and film that in one take so that there's no editing. So there's some pros and cons with doing each technique there. With the formal sit down, then we can frame everything up nicely. We've got somebody behind the camera who can kind of keep an eye on the camera a little better than running around. We don't have to worry too much and just keep talking and see where it goes. The disadvantage with that style is that once you sit somebody down and you put a camera in front of them, is that they get very nervous. So what we've done is we've typically gone into the barbershop location where we're going to be doing the filming. We'll be doing some B-roll footage and the photography that we do. Then we will film the haircut or the experience, and then we will do the interview last, because by that point, typically the person that we're filming is a lot more relaxed, because by the time they've got the filming of the haircut or something over with, they kind of like let out a big sigh of relief and say, or it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and so they're a lot more relaxed. So then we'll sit them down and we'll start talking and asking them questions and stuff, and just to see where it goes. With the walk around, it's a little harder, because the pro is that the barber tends to be a little more relaxed, because they can move around, and it's more like they're talking to somebody, a little easier in that respect. But then the downside is from the filming, because you're constantly having to keep an eye out for the environment and framing the shot up and making sure the audio is coming through good, and you have the constant change of the lighting and stuff. So with the last one we did in Denmark, we're going from outside to inside, and the camera's on manual, so you're constantly having to try and play with it as you're filming. So it becomes a lot harder to film, even though the end result tends to be that the barber is a lot more relaxed. There's some pros and cons. with each one. I'm sure with Bobby in Denmark, we could have done a sit-down interview and a walk around, and it would have worked both ways. Other times some work better than others, and sometimes it just doesn't work at all because it's just a very new experience for the barber. Before we go out and we're filming, we don't show up there and just do an interview, because otherwise you would wind up with that very generic infomercial about the business and the hours and the location. So what we're trying to do is take it beyond that and really digging down to try and find a unique or an interesting story, because I think everybody has something that is worth listening to, worth sharing, and so it's really trying to get into that and find out what it is, and to get them to share it in a way that is a compelling story. So we tend to do as much research as possible about the location and the barber before we go and film, and so it will be doing, looking at their social media and look at what they've been talking about there. We'll look at the reviews and things that people have placed, and look for anything that's been in the local media and stuff about them to kind of promote them or share. With Cliff in Vegas, then there had been a business review video that was done, so they kind of touched on some of the stuff with the scissors, and then actually one of his customers had heard that we were going to be doing a video there with him, and they made a point of sending us a message and saying, you have to ask him about his big scissors. And so that's what got us going. Okay, that's the story there. It's like, big scissors, why does he use big scissors, what's the benefit of it, and how did this all come about? And through that he was talking, and then that's when he starts talking about his passion for the barbering, and you really got this kind of unique story out of him as a result of that. One of the biggest problems that we have when we're doing the interviews is that the barbers are really not used to the idea of being interviewed beyond answering the very generic kinds of questions that they get asked frequently anyway, like what time, how long have you been barbering, and that kind of thing. So then it makes it so much harder when you stick a camera in front of them, and then you're really probing them for trying to get answers out of them, but also trying to get answers expressed in a way that help build a story. So often, you'll find that somebody is a little nervous, and you ask a probing question like, how do you think the business environment for a barbershop has changed over the years? And you get an answer like, well, yes, it's very different now. The answer is not really something that you could use in an interview, so you have to start probing and pushing and asking the same question in different ways to get them loosened up enough to be able to answer the questions in an informative and in an energetic kind of way that makes it more compelling and interesting to listen to. Sometimes it doesn't work, and at the end of the day there is no interview, because with the amount of time that we have, we just don't have enough time to get enough of an answer out of them. So there really is no interview there in situations like that. We have a couple of different techniques that we've used, and some work better than others depending on the individual. And typically what we found is if people freeze up, and it takes a while to get them loosened up, to get them talking, and best technique seems to be to get the camera rolling and start generally talking about stuff. Get the basic questions out the way, like, hey, why don't you tell us where you are, where we are, what we're doing here, and tell me who you are, how long's the shop been open, etc. Get those questions out the way at the beginning. And then once you see them loosening up, you just have a kind of a general conversation, and then lead into the more complex questions, or the questions that kind of help shape a story or help get the information out. And hopefully by that point in time they really don't realize they're being filmed, and they're just talking freely and telling me everything, you know, and explaining everything as if they were having a general conversation. And then towards the end, you can go back to those original questions where at that point they're more relaxed and ask those same questions and get a better response out of the individual. It can be a little difficult and it can be a little awkward. So going forward, what I'm hoping to do, or what I'm looking to do, because my personal interest is more the documentary, so I actually enjoy doing the interviews a lot more than the haircuts, because I think that the interviews, everybody has a compelling story that is worthwhile hearing, and so it's really trying to get those stories and share them so that everybody has the opportunity to listen to them and potentially learn from them. So going forward, I do plan to do a lot more interviews, and I would love to hear, like as I said, some feedback from you guys as to what you think works, what doesn't work. And there are some subjects that I would like to cover. I do have a personal interest more in the documentary style of filming, so I am looking to do some filming of a non-profit in Vancouver, Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada, the Street Thug Barbers, where they go out and help the homeless people in the city there, and kind of look at what they're doing. But I don't want it, you know, if I do that, then I don't want it to be a walk around type of style or a formal interview style. So it's really pushing me to do something that's more film based, or something that's a little different, that still has a very compelling message and story behind it. And again, it ties into the general direction of the YouTube channel with the barbershop theme, and so it doesn't deviate too far from that. And so that brings us to the end of the podcast for March, and please don't forget to write a few words or comments below to kind of give me some feedback and stuff on the interviews, and what you think works and doesn't work, and if there's something you've seen again that you thought was very interesting along the lines of the interviews or the documentary type of stuff, then please let me know. And next month I'm hoping I can, for the podcast, we can try something a little different and actually do a kind of like a podcast with one of the barbers that we had filmed with, because I think we're going to be crossing paths in a week or so. So that would be interesting, kind of get a little catch up maybe on what they've been up to and stuff. So hopefully that pans out. I will let you know very, very soon. In the meantime, have fun, and thank you very much for watching all the videos and commenting and being a Patreon supporter. Thank you very much. Have fun. Just pop this out. Do you want to say something?
How's everything going?
It's going good.